Yes, preparation for the interview. So, what do you need to do? You should prepare for your interview thoroughly and carefully. Failure to be fully prepared for your interview at the US Embassy or Consulate can result in delay or denial of your visa application. So, after you have been notified of your scheduled interview, you will need to take the following important steps in advance for the interview date. Number one, carefully review your scheduling information in the entrance status check on the electronic diversity visa website, noting the date, the time, and the location of your immigrant visa interview. Number two, review US Embassy or Consulate interview instructions. There may be additional instructions provided by the US Embassy or Consulate where you will be applying and be interviewed. So please review those instructions carefully. To see this information, select the website at the description, US Embassy or Consulate, where you will be interviewed. Please note that some of the information included on these instructions may apply to immigrant visa classifications other than diversity visas. So if you have questions about the country specific information included here, please contact the embassy where you will apply for your visa. So visit the list of US embassies and consulates to review the instruction. Number three, schedule and complete medical examination. So you and each family member applying for a visa with you are required to schedule a medical appointment with an authorized physician in the country where you will be interviewed. You must complete your medical examination along with any required vaccination before your scheduled visa interview date. So, when your medical exam is completed, if you are given a medical exam envelope, you must bring it sealed, not opened, to your visa interview. Some physicians will send the medical exam result directly to the embassy or rather the consulate. So, a list of authorized physicians for the US Embassy or consulate where you will apply is provided at the drop down list on the description. You must contact a physician and schedule your medical appointment. So the embassy or consulate will not do this for you. Explain that the examination for an immigrant visa application and give the physician the date for the interview appointment. So the physician will tell you the cost of the examination and the tests. Please note that some of the information included in this instruction may apply also to other types of visas classifications other than DV visas. So if you have questions about the country specific information included here, please also contact your embassy where you will apply for the visa. So number four, gather photographs and all remaining required documents. When talk about photograph, each DV applicant will need to bring two identical photos to the interview. So please review the detailed information about photo requirements on the link on the description to ensure that your photos will be acceptable. So we also have required documentation. So each applicant will be required to present the following: appointment information printed from the entrance status check on the electronic diversity visa website, DS260 confirmation page. You can print this from the Consular Electronic Application Center anytime after you complete your DS260 application. You also need passports valid for 6 months beyond the intended date of entry into the US for you and each family member applying for a visa. So, applicant interview. So, prior to your interview, ensure you have followed the US Embassy interview preparation instructions I've given you above. So, on the scheduled date and time of your interview appointment, go to the US Embassy early enough, and a consular officer will interview you and accompanying family member beneficiaries and determine whether or not you can receive an immigrant visa. As part of the interview process, ink-free digital fingerprint scans will be taken. So who must attend the interview, you might wonder? You, your spouse if you're married, And any qualified unmarried children immigrating with you must participate in the interview. So if your spouse or qualified unmarried children will immigrate at the later date and travel separately from you, they are not required to participate in your interview. They will be scheduled for a separate interview appointment. So you should contact the US Embassy directly to arrange separate interviews if needed. So, what do you bring to the interview? First is appointment letter. Your appointment information from the entrance status check, your DS-260 confirmation page. I've mentioned about that. You need photographs, 2 identical color photographs for each applicant, and they must meet the standards explained on the photograph requirements on the website. You also need medical exam results. So the physician will give you sealed envelopes containing each applicant's medical examination results. So please bring those unopened envelopes. Don't open or terminate anything in them. And also, some physicians can send it directly to the US Embassy. So, how do you prepare for the interview? You need original and supporting documents or certified copies of all documents you submitted to KCC for you and each member of your family applying for a visa, with only if you have the passport exemption. And you may also be required to provide evidence of work and education requirements, marriage certificates, marriage termination documentation, and custody documentation. So if you have a new document that you did not submit to KCC, bring both the original and one photocopy. So your original documents will be returned to you when the interview has been completed, and the copies will be kept. So for more information, review on the link below how to prepare your supporting documents. And also you can be required to bring English translations if the documents required are in another language which is not English. You must obtain certified translations and present them to on the day of your interview. So you also need to bring visa fees. If you do not pay for your visa fee prior to your interview, you will need to pay them before speaking with the consular officer. So that's all for this episode. Additional information. Maybe you need to reschedule your appointment. So if you cannot appear at the scheduled interview, contact the US Embassy or Consulate as soon as possible. So under US law, all diversity visas for a fiscal year must be issued prior to September 30th. And available visas for some countries and regions may be used up prior to that date. So if you delay your appointment, you may lose your opportunity to migrate on the basis of your DV application. And maybe you will also like your spouse or children to follow you to the United States after you migrate. So, can they do that? Yes, of course. But remember that all diversity visas for a fiscal year must be issued by September 30th. So, available visas for some countries and regions may be used up prior to that date. So, if your spouse and children delay obtaining their visas, they may lose the opportunity to migrate on the basis of their diversity visa application. So, normally, if this happens, you will need to file a petition to bring your family to the United States at a later date. So if they do not obtain diversity visas prior to 30th of September, your spouse and children may have to wait several years to join you. You might also wonder, can my spouse or children receive diversity visas even if they were not on my original entry? So if you are married or your child was born or adopted after you submitted your entry to the DV program, you can add them to your case. and they may be eligible to receive diversity visas. So, if you were married or had children prior to entering the DV program and you failed to include your family members on your original entry, your case will be automatically be disqualified. Neither you nor your family members will receive visas, and your fees will not be refunded. So, what if your child will turn 21 years old soon? So, children generally must be unmarried and under the age of 21 to qualify as derivative applicants. Also, they generally must use their visas to enter the United States while still under 21. So, as I have said, if you have a child who will be turning 21 soon, you should immediately contact the US Embassy or Consulate where your interview is scheduled. So, the US Embassy or Consulate will determine whether an earlier appointment is needed, and if your child is no longer is no longer if your child no longer qualifies to immigrate with you based on age, then a separate petition must be filed for the child after you immigrate. So there may be a significant delay before your child becomes qualified for a visa. And this important notice, you have to remember that you should not make a permanent financial commitment, such as selling your house, selling a car, or selling a property, or resigning from a job, or making non refundable flight or other travel arrangements until you have received your immigrant visa. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for being with me. I wish you all the best in your DV journey. And remember, a like is always appreciated. And do well to subscribe, please, so that you'll be notified when I post